I told God that I would allow Him to send me the man that He had for me, and that I would patiently wait. But I did make a few descriptions of how I wanted him to be. And I told him that I didn't want him to be like any man I'd ever known, mainly not a man that had been to the feds. Um, but
So you have Shane with this amazing story of counseling people in prison. Talara with this amazing story of being a prayer warrior. Every time she goes back to the jail, they're like, oh, the preacher's back. Every time he goes back, every time he's in there, they're like, oh, it's the counselor. So, how amazing is it that God put both of you in the path to meet each other and become together parents?
let me start this. So, my granny told me years ago my picker was broken. I could not pick a man correctly to save my life. So when I got to the phase where I knew it was time for me to get it together, I began to pray about it. And I said, God, you know what? I'm not going to even attempt to look for a man. I'm not going to attempt to put myself out here to find a man or wanting him to be a man of God.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted him to be able to understand me for me. I didn't want to have to hide or lie about anything from my past. So I just began to pray, like, and really pray. And I just let it alone. Yeah, like I knew I had a lot of work to do on myself, and I wasn't looking. I wasn't worried about it. And ironically, I was dealing with the anger issues with my son because even though when I got out, I needed a place to stay, he let me stay there. I don't even think he trusted me, but I was his mom, and he knew I needed a place to stay, and he allowed me to stay there. But he was mad at me, and he didn't want to accept me, and it was because he was afraid that I was gonna go back. So, um, I needed to find somebody to help me understand him and help him understand me. And I had found out about PLR. And I went in there one day because the previous director, her and I had a relationship throughout the years. And so I went in there to talk to her, and I stumbled upon PLR's group. And who's leading the group? Shane. And I'm in there and I'm just like hanging on to every word he was saying. But it wasn't, I didn't immediately get the eyes for him. I was in there looking for help. And and I just shared with him what it was and what I was going through and the help that I needed, and he agreed to help.
Yeah, and for me, it was just kind of the perfect storm. Unbeknownst to her, I was going through pretty rough transition myself. Was at the tail end of a bad situation, and was just at this space where it's like, I got to vest the love that I put into others into myself. Um, and so when I met her, it became something for me to focus on. Her first of all, her request to help her with her son is it was just, I mean, of course I took that on. Young men, particularly young black men, are something that I hold dear to heart because I know that so many of us, and I say us because I can remember my early years and what led to my situation, so many of us are misunderstood. And I always felt like people could bridge the gap if they have the right mediator, the right interpreter to say to that person what this person mean and say to this person what that person mean. Because ultimately we all want the same thing out of life, that's safety and security. And I just, when she asked if I could help her with that, just like, of course. And during the process of doing this, I found someone that I could trust and kind of began to open the window into my life because I was this kind of public figure, and so I was very reserved about what I had going on within the four walls of my own home. And she became that first person, even before my dad, that I can talk to about that transition. And one of the things that struck me with it that she was so non-judgmental, so not opinionated, and over the months that followed, that turned to years, she listened without judgment, one way or another. And that is what I value more than anything, because I think a lot of times when people see a figure that they admire, they look for those vulnerable moments to kind of stake their claim. But she never did, and I value that. And no one would have ever thought that today we would share a 14-month-old son. I'm grateful.
Well, we know what her history. All you had to do is breathe on her.
And I think I had a cold when we got to that point.
So you guys together collaborate, and so you have each of your own. So you have Mother to Mother, and you're working also with that. And do you also work with Modern Pathways, or do you guys keep things pretty separate?
So we try to give them collaborating events just to show them that recovery, you can't, a lot of people think you can't coexist the males with the females, but we try to give them the healthy balance to say, hey, you don't have to jump on this man just because it's a man in recovery, but we do things together. We take them to the lake. We, have the holiday gatherings. But as far as me with Modern Pathway, before I opened Mother to Mother, I think they had been in operation almost a year, and a lot of the guys, they needed that softer figure, that womanly figure that they could begin to open up to. One of the guys in general that is, for me, I love him so much. When I was working at PLR, right when Modern Pathways got opened up, he was the tough case. Like he didn't want to participate in group. He didn't want to talk one-on-one, but he always found himself in my office talking. He didn't want to talk to me, but he was always in my office talking. And I used to tell him, listen, you need to go to Modern Pathways. You're in this situation. You out here messed up. You need to go. You need to be one of the first ones there. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. He went. And because of it today, he is thriving, doing well. So I would say in the earlier beginning phases, it was just him and I. When putting the furniture together and cleaning the apartment out, the first unit, it was just him and I. So I would like to say that I was definitely in the beginning processes of Modern Pathways, but am I hands-on with it now? No, they still come to me, Miss T, and they'll still talk to me about stuff, but not as much as they did in the beginning.
And for my part, I think I was the opposite. The men needed a softer part, because I can be firm, but the women needed, for Mother to Mother, need a male that can give them honest advice and opinion. They're not worried about any ulterior motives.
Exactly. And that is so important with women, having like a big brother fatherly role that is safe.
Yes,
that is so huge. So I think it's so cool that you guys are able to collaborate, and it's like it's almost like family recovery, being able to see the mother sister figure, the father brother figure, and then you guys, just being the example of this is what recovery looks like, this is what trusting God looks like, this is what walking out in faith looks like, and taking your, lived experience and turning your negatives into positives, and not just turning it into positive for yourself, but multiplying that into a harvest for the whole world.
Yes, ma'am. And that's our hope. That's our for us both. The gift of our hurts and pain is a passion and an empathy for others, and that's one of the many things that we share in common.
Not only that, one of the biggest things for me that was proof that God sent this man to me was, I guess, probably about a year or so of our relationship. I shared with him a prayer that I had prayed many years ago, that if God just saved my life, I would use the rest of my life in service. He had prayed the same prayer.
Wow.
He had literally prayed the same prayer. And so I remember when we first got together, I told him, I said, we are going to be an amazing team. Like, we going to do this. My actual words were, I see us on the front page of the Forbes magazine. And he laughed, just like he's laughing now. I saw it, I meant it, and I stand on it. But what I meant was, I knew that God brought us together to do this work. And it was
Absolutely.
just no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Right. And that is something that people don't really understand about marriage, right? There's a couple reasons why God gave us the wonderful gift of marriage. One is to sanctify us, which sometimes hurts.
Sure.
Right?
Right.
But also it's to use for God's glory, so and for service, right? And so you guys are definitely like the example of what that looks like. You're proof of that. So what about like deciding to be together like as a family, both in recovery? There's a lot to that.
Right.
And I know because I am married to this wonderful man. We're both in recovery, and man, it can be really challenging sometimes.
Yeah, it is. For me, I'm Muslim, as I stated earlier. So the first thing for me was to sanctify our marriage. So we entered into a covenant according to Islamic principles. And for me, that was just like that just had to have been done. Once that was established, I'm used to the struggle. My previous marriage consisted of quite a few struggles, but often one-sided. But I thank God for the experience. But with her, Talara is willing to struggle as well. And so the marriage consists of, as you say, a lot of dynamics. Not very easy. But when you have someone that's willing to fight just as hard and has just as much vested as you do, it sanctify even the struggles, and it has been a growing process, and I pray that it continue to be a growth process throughout the duration of our lives. But because we both have similar background, kind of this parallel existence in prisons of our own, we get it, we understand it, and we continue to push forward.
Right.
For me, I have this stubbornness, this mindset that says I lost a lot through my years of my addiction and just family and stuff. So I took from him, he's such like give me some of these hats. Like he wears so many. I wanted that as well. I wanted to match his energy. I didn't want to come into the relationship and just, I don't want to ride his wave. I want to ride with him on the wave. So I wanted to match his energy. The only problem is because I have to realize I got a 14-month-old and a whole home. And so sometimes my doings and my goings will interfere with, it's time to come home and cook. It's time to take your cape off and stop being superwoman to the world and be superwoman at home.
Yeah.
And that for me is something I've had to learn, and that's for me is where I'm working on me at. Because I thought that, maybe while I was out being superwoman at home, we could hire a maid or something, and it just doesn't work like that.
Someday.
No. I don't ever want a maid. I don't ever want a maid.
That's a joke.
Okay.
But either way, it's learning. It's learning to balance. Is one of the hardest part for me in the relationship is being able to be woman enough to say, I'm wrong. We can't do that. Women don't do that in real life, do they? Yeah, we have to. And I'm learning that, and that was my biggest part of the growth, and developing this relationship to being whole and healthy is to be willing to grow through the pains of it. And it's painful sometimes, but it's all worth it. It's all worth it just to know that first and foremost, this is a God sin. So we have to honor it, and we have to do God's will, and we have to do some things outside of our will in order so God's will can be done. And I have to constantly remind myself and be reminded and but the fact that I'm willing to.
And that goes both ways. You know, I'm such a, I see a goal, I set steps, let's get her done. But I have to realize that that level of discipline is God's gift to me. She has her own gift. And so I have to be mindful about imposing my will or imposing my gift on her and say, hey, walk this way. You know, the thing I remind myself is that if everyone is like you, then there's no gift in what you can do. And so I take pride in the fact that we're different. She's gifted her own way. I'm more disciplined, more structured in terms of my thought and executing plans, but that's made me what I am. But she is more gifted in her empathy, her ability to connect on the emotional level, her ability to process hard things like what she's saying and fight against herself and come with the, you know what, okay, I'm sorry, you know, and that's a gift. So it's both ways, you know. I have to allow her to walk in her gift, I walk in mine, while we agree to meet midway.
You say it so gracefully. I know from my own experience it doesn't always look graceful.
Right,
It gets
absolutely.
hard. It gets
Absolutely.
hard. But you guys it seems like you're doing an amazing job. And so would you just tell everyone about your I just want to end with having everybody know about Mother to Mother, so where it is and what you provide for services. Just one more time.
So Mother to Mother Recovery Center is located at 2 Professional Court, Elberton, Georgia. We're literally right across the street from the hospital. And we provide, I like to say, a wraparound of support services, because we support multiple pathways. We medical assistant treatment, the spiritual side, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. I like to say that, you know, we give them that clinical piece that is needed, but for me the hard part, the power part is the experience, the raw, honest experience that they need to hear, and then to just be the evidence that it's possible. So I just pour into them all the love that I can.
And if someone is interested in coming to Mother or donating to Mother, how would they do that?
We are on Facebook at Mother to Mother Recovery Center.
Okay.
And we are on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay.
And the contact number is 706-351-8952. And we do Cash App. Mother to Mother Recovery Center. It's Mother to Mother is our Cash App tag.
Awesome. And Shane, for you, PLR and Modern Pathways.
Yes, ma'am. So PLR is a 501c3 nonprofit located in Athens. It's RCO, Recovery Community Organization. We offer recovery support services to individuals suffering with substance use, mental health, and homelessness. Modern Pathways, again, is a 12-month treatment program for men. We have 3 units here in Athens, and we do work with individual intake fees. And I point that out because the co-director, Edmund Patterson, and myself, we realized that sometimes recovery can be cost inhibitive. And so we wanted to create an organization that did not make that price point so high or so challenging that individuals say, you know what, I can't afford recovery. And my contact number is 706-340-4098, and we do both jointly have a nonprofit called Life in Recovery, and the information for that can be provided as well upon contact.
Okay. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much for letting us come and invade your house.
Yes, ma'am.
And set
Glad
up.
to have you.
Thank you so much for your powerful stories, and we will see you guys next time on Recovery Inspired Hope.
Thank you.